Okay, this is homework 4.4, and in this one we're introducing the logical operators and keywords. So logical operators are things that allow us to create more complex conditions. The logical operators are and, or, and not. This is true for all programming languages. These logical operators exist in all programming languages. And we talk about this idea of a truth table. And a truth table is basically used to help us understand how combinations of conditions using the logical operators evaluate. Okay? So the way to read these, and I go over this in lecture, is true and true. So we've got and as our operator here. And in our table we've got true and true. And what does true and true evaluate to? Well, it evaluates to true. What about true and false? That evaluates to false. So on and so forth, okay? Same for or, and then not is pretty straightforward as well. So make sure you watch that lecture if you haven't already. Moving on to the code. A lot of what we're doing here is just trying new things out in the shell, just to get an idea of how they work. So let's go ahead and give these a shot. We'll say true and true, gives us true, true and false, gives us false, false and true, and then false and false. Now a lot of people, when they first see this, they kind of get confused and think, oh, it's like two negatives in math make a positive, but that's not the case with programming. False and false is simply false. What about or? So true or true, that gives us true, true or false, and so on and so forth. And you try these out and you realize that, oh, well, these three, as long as there's some presence of truth in an or, then we get true. If there's any false in an and, we get false. And the way to think about these is it's kind of like if your door is closed and your engine is on, you can drive your car. You should drive your car. But if the door is open and the engine is on, would you want to drive your car? Probably not. You might knock your door off. With true or false, you could think about it as like, when can I sleep in? Well, I can sleep in if it's the weekend or I'm on vacation. And then not simply gives us the opposite, and it can be used in combination with and or. So not true, I'll say not true, that's false. Not true and true, that's going to be false as well because true and true make true. And then we put not on there, that turns it into false. Or we could say not false and true, that's going to be true. So after we've run our code, we can type these lines into the shell. We've got x is equal to 18, so x is greater than 20 and x is equal to 18. Well, are both of those things true? That's the question you need to ask yourself when you see and. So is x greater than 20? False. And x is equal to 18. Well, that's true, but this is technically false and true, so we get false. What about x is greater than 20 and or x is equal to 18? Well, in this case, one part of this is true, and we're using or, so we get true. And we carry on with these. A really common one is this x is less than 20 and x is greater than 10. This is how we create what's called a range. So it's a range of values that x could be, and it is true. So you might say this if you're doing a grade. Like grade, let's set grade to 92, and we could say something like grade is less than 100 and greater than or equal to 90, well, you're going to get an A, right? Whoops. I made a common mistake. You have to include, there you go. So you have to include the variable in both comparisons. Notice how we do it here as well. So grade is less than 100 and grade is greater than or equal to 90. Yes, it's 92. All right. We can use other data types. Like in this response, we get yes. Is response not equal to no? And response equal to yes? Yeah, it is. Is response not equal to no? And response is not equal to maybe. That's also true. So there's another example. Okay, so these are just an introduction to the logical operators. It's really all this is intended to be, to start to experiment with how and or not work. So hopefully you tried all these out and got to observe their behavior. Up next is our last video for homework review, which is 4.5.